Hi everyone, I'm Andre and I'm here with Miruna, and today we have invited Kenneth Hamburger, Fire Protection Engineer for the US Nuclear Regulatory Commission, to share some insights about his career path. So thanks, Ken, for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
So this time I like to start a little differently than usual, and I like us to talk about your current job with the NRC, because I'm sure that the work you're doing is nonetheless interesting, and obviously doing a degree in this field is a general welcome to the topic, but doing groundbreaking nuclear research is pretty unique. I think this is performance engineering, and I presume there are no time limits on the project, so I find it very different from what I know about fire engineers. So my question for you is, what is it like to work for the government, and what does an ordinary day in your life as a fire protection engineer look like?
Sure. So I am a fire protection engineer in the Office of Research of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And what we typically do is develop the tools and methods and data that the regulatory office of our agency uses to make regulatory decisions. So when there is a safety issue or a safety question or a fire risk and reliability related question at one of the 90 something operating nuclear power plants in the US, the regulatory folks will refer the question to us. We will do the research involved in answering the question, and then they can make informed regulatory decisions. So my day-to-day typically revolves around longer term projects. So these research projects are typically, they're not quick, 1 or 2 day things. These are
Mm-hmm.
typically projects that last months, sometimes even years. So we manage contracts with national laboratories around the country to perform some of these experiments. The engineers in my branch will analyze the data, make sure that it's responsive to the requests from the regulators. We typically publish reports that detail the results of these experiments, and ultimately the findings of our research end up either in regulatory guidance or regulatory rules that our licensees, the nuclear power plants, have to comply with.
And as far as I read, the main responsibilities at NRC are to ensure protection of public health and safety, to promote the common defense and security, and to protect the environment. Usually, we don't have the opportunity to speak to fire engineers outside of the consulting world. So I am curious to find out what made you choose this path.
The truth is that I was looking for something a little different than the traditional fire protection engineering uh, career path. I I didn't I didn't love the work regarding life safety code and the construction and consulting industry. Um, the nuclear side of fire protection is unique in that we do not typically deal with traditional fire protection concerns. The people in the nuclear power plants are not our concern. We're not dealing with egress calculations. We're not dealing with traditional fire suppression. We're concerned with the safety and security of the reactor. So it's a little bit more risk and reliability related rather than life safety related in the traditional fire protection aspects. So I thought that was unique. It was different than the career path of a lot of my colleagues. I thought it was spoke a little bit more to my interests, doing research rather than code analysis and consulting. So it is a little different, but it's something that I think makes it unique and something that I enjoy.
Definitely. And I'm sure you got all the guidance you needed back to the time when you were in college. You've done your bachelor's and master's at the FP program at Maryland. And I'd like us to talk a little bit about your story and how you found about fire engineering and essentially how you got into it.
So my entry into fire protection engineering actually starts way back when I was 16 years old. I joined a volunteer fire department in my hometown of Pikesville, Maryland, and I became a firefighter and an EMT for that department. And I did that I've been doing it since then, still doing it now. And when I first joined University of Maryland, I was an undecided engineering major. And subsequently, I found out that the fire department, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, through the fire department, actually will reimburse tuition if volunteer firefighters take a related degree path. Fire protection engineering was one of the qualifying majors. So when I saw that they would pay for my tuition in full, I switched from undecided to fire protection. It was still within the engineering school, and that made the decision pretty easy. So that's how I got into it. Once I was there, I thought that the topics were really interesting. I found the subject matter fascinating, and so I was very happy to stay with the fire protection department.
What was the moment when you said, yes, fire protection engineering is what I want to do from now on? It has something to do with some courses you took, or is it related to some volunteering work or an internship program, maybe?
Probably the coursework. I would say that I really enjoyed, and this is perhaps unusual if you'll talk to other FPEs, but I really enjoyed heat and mass transfer and fire dynamics. Those are some of the more technically we'll call them complicated courses, dealing with the fundamentals of fire behavior. Um, Very math and physics heavy, but I really enjoyed those courses, and that's kind of when I realized that this is the where I want to be.
I can conclude from here that Maryland University has trained you or even shaped you very well for a future career as a fire protection engineer. And I know for a fact it's quite easy to find a job afterwards, after you finish. But when you finish your degree, your life kind of splits. Some go back and do PhD, some go into consulting, some go actually doing something completely different that is not even related to fire. So I'm wondering, how did you find this position that you are currently at, and what are the pluses of working for the government?
The way I found my position was some of my friends from University of Maryland had actually interned with the NRC during their summer
Mm.
internships, so they were familiar with the agency and the fire protection program here. One of my good friends actually went to work for the NRC after she graduated, and she knew who would later become my supervisor, and she recommended me to him and him to me. And he let me know that there was an opening in his branch. I applied, and the rest is history.
Well, hopefully they will see the interview on our page and they will see that you are grateful for this.
Yes.
And
And in terms of working for the government, it's got its pluses and its minuses. Um, Pluses are it's a very stable, secure job. I don't usually have to worry about the economy's ups and downs when it comes to hiring and firing. It's a very stable job. It has a lot of red tape. It's very bureaucratic, and I think most people know this about the government. It takes a lot of steps and a lot of signatures and a lot of reviews and approvals before anything gets done. But things do get done. They just get done a little slower than perhaps they would in the private sector. Um, but I haven't really had too many issues working in the government. I think it's, for the most part, it's like working in any other office environment.
well, I can tell that being a recruitment consultant give us the opportunity to meet lots of engineers, and very few of the engineers we've met do research or work a lot in the office. Some of them are doing research, but most of them don't. So now that we know your story and how you ended up working for the government, my question for you is, if you didn't get this job, where else would you think you'd be working?
That's a good question. Uh, I have never really given that a lot of consideration. Like I said, this was my first job out of school, and I've been here since 2014. So I haven't really considered where else I would be. I During my job search, I did interview with the Smithsonian for a fire protection engineering position with the Smithsonian. I thought that their mission, which is to come up with unique ways of protecting really priceless artifacts, would be interesting. You'd get to employ some creative solutions there. So perhaps I'd be there. Um, I'm not sure otherwise.
Well, since we're on this topic, I'm convinced you are working on a lot of captivating research projects, and I was wondering what was the most interesting paperwork you've done so far.
So we are currently doing probably what I would say is the most exciting research work that I've done so far. We're looking into a phenomenon called high energy arcing faults, and these are very high energy electrical faults that occur in electrical distribution equipment. They are can be very damaging. They put out a lot of heat, a lot of energy. Um, Ionized particles, and they can damage a lot of equipment very quickly. So we are doing full-scale experiments at a high-energy test facility where we employ some very unique instrumentation and measurement techniques to capture the effects of these fairly explosive events and come up with, like I said, better methods, tools, and data for the regulators to make decisions about how these need to be accounted for in the plant risk models.
That's quite interesting. Actually, it's the first time I'm hearing of this subject. Actually, I never heard of it, to
Me
be
too.
honest.
too. Ken, you won the Federal Engineer of the Year award in the 2021 within the National Society of Professional Engineers for your research. How was this experience for you?
Well, unfortunately, due to COVID, it was pretty subtle experience overall. I was I was nominated by my supervisor and encouraged to submit for it. And normally, I think there is a an awards ceremony. Due to COVID, it was not in person, so it was pretty low key. But it was nice. It's certainly something I can put on my resume, and it was nice to be recognized for the work that we've been doing here. So I definitely enjoyed it, but it wasn't the big bash that it normally is.
Unfortunately, yes, but it is on YouTube, guys, and I think it could have been an incredible experience overall. And actually, this reminds me of a question that I like to ask everyone because everybody does things in a different way, and I like you to share this with us. If we'd go back in the time when you first started at Maryland, what advice would you give to the 20 something fire engineer that is at the beginning of his career?
I would tell them that fire protection engineering is probably unique amongst the other engineering disciplines in that it is a relatively young discipline. The department has only been around since I think the 1950s, and it's not a particularly crowded field. So if you want to become the world expert in some particular aspect of fire protection engineering, whether it's microgravity fires or nuclear industry fire protection, that's available to you. You can become the world recognized expert because again, it's not a particularly crowded field. So, you know, search for what you like within the discipline of fire protection engineering and go for it.
I agree with you. I think that's one of the best advices we got here. So because we mentioned the past, it's only fair to think of the future. So our last question for you, Ken, is how do you imagine your career developing in the coming years? What are your plans?
That is a good question. One of the one of the things that we do in the government is we develop individual development plans where we periodically answer that exact question and we come up with a plan
Mm-hmm.
to meet those goals. Um, it's it's a good it's a good question. I'm not sure I have a great answer for it. My supervisor has encouraged me to go back and pursue a part-time PhD. I'm not sure that that's exactly what I want to do. I'm still looking for the right topic if I do go down that path. I'm still thinking about it. I'm I'm not sure I'm quite mid-career yet, but I have currently I'm very happy with what I'm working on at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I have no intention of leaving just yet. So
I mean, there's plenty of time to think of something, so I'm sure you'll find something eventually. So, yeah, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you for your time, Ken, and for sharing your story with us. And I'm sure it will inspire the future generation of fire engineers. Thank you.
My pleasure.